Hey guys, last week I published a video on one of my games from the 2024 Scrabble Players Championship where I talked about how sometimes in Scrabble it's better to be lucky than good. In that game, I was down nearly 200 points to longtime expert Jason Lee, and despite some misplayed turns on my part, I got a string of undeservedly lucky draws that ended up allowing me to win that game in improbable fashion. In that game, Jason's loss didn't seem to be his own fault. Despite the tiles not going his way at the end, he played a very solid game, and it was just by virtue of bad luck he ended up losing. However, that is definitely not always the case. Even at the top level, sometimes to win a game, you need to not only get lucky in terms of drawing the right stuff from the tile bag, but also get lucky in terms of your opponent making some unexpected mistakes. And nobody capitalized on this better than my friend and fellow top expert Joey Krafchick at the 2024 World Cup held in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In the first game I'm going to be showing you guys today, Joey was facing longtime expert Nigel Peltier and seemed to be all but lost. Nigel had just bingoed with Dog's Tail for 66 points, taking a 119-point lead by a score of 457 to 338. With time running out, note that there are only 7 tiles left in the bag at this point. Joey is going to need nothing short of a miracle to make up this deficit. To make matters worse for Joey, his current rack, EMOORTU, is not all that great, and the unseen tiles from Joey's perspective, with the exception of the blank, are really bad for making bingos. He's looking at a Q, 2 U's, a V, and a W, as well as a K among the unseen tiles. And Joey is going to need at least 1 bingo, if not 2, if he wants to come back. But the problem is, it's actually not possible for Joey to bingo twice more this game. Because with only 7 tiles left in the bag, the only way he could theoretically do that would be if he bingoed right now, and then drew a second consecutive bingo that could be made from the 7 remaining tiles in the bag that would end up as his final rack. But Joey has no playable bingos with his rack of EMOORTU in this position, so therefore that is impossible. As such, if Joey wants to mount a comeback, he's going to need to do it with just 1 bingo. Which, given that most bingos score far less than the 119 points he's currently trailing by, is going to be a very tall order and almost certainly going to require something quite special on Joey's part to accomplish. But Joey's play in this position is anything but special. He plays outro from the Owen Dog's Tail for 18 points. Now, when I say this play is anything but special, I'm not at all saying it's a bad play. In fact, I think it's a pretty good play, because Joey desperately needs to open some more space for additional bingo lines on this board, and outro accomplishes that very well. When I say this play is anything but special, I just mean it's not the kind of super high scoring or super flashy play we might expect from somebody who's in the process of making a spectacular comeback from down 119 points. But stay tuned, because the game is not over yet. After Joey's play of outro, Nigel was facing a situation where he was up 101 points with 3 tiles left in the bag. I'm not sure if this was Nigel's actual rack, but based on what he played in this position and how the rest of the game transpired, I have a feeling this is pretty close, if not exactly correct. That being said, even if I'm off by a tile or 2, it doesn't really affect the rest of the analysis. In any case, in this position, Nigel played the word kuru for 18 points through the R in outro, which on the surface looks like a very logical play. It scores reasonably well, it blocks some lines with a large lead, and it unloads the K and the 2 U's, Nigel's worst tiles on his rack. However, as we'll see, this turned out to be a catastrophic mistake on Nigel's part, because after this play, Joey, who drew the blank into a rack of EEMOVW blank, bingoed with the amazing 12 Mo, which is a kind of paper size, through the L in Dog's Tail for 84 points with a blank T. And the catch is here, Joey didn't just bingo, he bingoed out to end the game. Because, if we go back to the position where Nigel played Kuru, there were 3 tiles left in the bag, and Kuru uses 3 tiles, so Nigel exactly empties the bag. And that means that after 12 Mo, Joey is going to end the game and get bonus points for all 7 of the unplayed tiles now on Nigel's rack, which, as you guys can see, are AEOOPQT. Now, of course, Joey is still down 119 before he plays 12 Mo, and 12 Mo is only 84. So is that really going to be enough for Joey to win? Well, let's do the math. After 12 Mo, that brings Joey to 440. He's still down 35 points. What do the letters in AEOOPQT add up to? It turns out they add up to 18. And Joey is going to get double that number as a penalty for catching Nigel with these unplayed tiles. So that means Joey gets 18 times 2, or 36, added to his score, and he wins the game by just 1 point. Final score, 476 Joey, 475 Nigel. Absolutely unbelievable stuff. So what went wrong here for Nigel? Nigel's play in this position of Kuru broke a key Scrabble principle. Namely, that if it's near the end of the game and you feel like you're in a dominant position, you feel like the only way you can lose is if something goes terribly wrong, then do not empty the bag. Because, as this game illustrates perfectly, bad things can happen quickly when you do empty the bag. If you empty the bag and your opponent bingos back, it's far, far worse for you than if you leave even just 1 or 2 tiles in the bag and your opponent bingos back. The reason is that if you empty the bag and your opponent bingos, they are going to be ending the game on the spot. And if that happens, your opponent is going to get a large number of bonus points from all of the unplayed tiles now sitting on your rack, and they're going to deprive you of the opportunity to get another turn, thereby scoring more points and unloading some of those tiles from your rack so your opponent doesn't get so many bonus points. If you leave 1 or 2 tiles in the bag, then after your opponent bingos, you still get an extra turn, which, like I said, you can use to score some points and unload some possibly high-scoring tiles from your rack so that your opponent doesn't get bonus points for them. That's often more than enough to make the difference between a tight loss and a comfortable victory. Let me show you how Nigel could have used that principle to his advantage in this position. Instead of playing Kuru, Nigel here is up so many points that he doesn't actually need to block Joey's bingo threats as long as he doesn't empty the bag. He could do something as simple as plopping his K in the top left corner, scoring 18 points. This would put him back up by 119. And let's say Nigel did this and Joey had the exact rack he had during the actual game. With this rack, Joey of course still has 12 mo available through the L. He actually also has a higher scoring bingo here, whomever, through the R and outro for 96, since Nigel didn't block it, but that's still nothing for Nigel to be afraid of, because he's still going to be up by 23 points after this bingo, and most critically, since Nigel didn't empty the bag, he's going to have another turn before Joey goes out and ends the game. Even the sometimes troublesome Q is nothing for Nigel to worry about drawing after dropping his K, because he kept 2 U's on his rack. Depending on what Nigel's actual rack was during the game, he might have plays as high scoring as Plaque for 46 through the L and Dog's Tail. Even much simpler plays, like Quiet for 15 through the I and Arsenical, would be more than enough for Nigel to win. As after a play like this, Nigel has now scored 15 points and unloaded the Q from his rack, which now Joey is not going to be able to claim 20 bonus points for after he goes out. Joey here would just go out for a couple of points, probably with something like 2 for 4, and Nigel's going to hold on easily in this particular scenario by 24 points, 490 to 466. If Nigel doesn't draw the Q, let's say he draws something like an O, then he's also got nothing to worry about because Joey doesn't have any big threats with the Q. There are tons of winning plays here for Nigel, such as Nape for 29 from the N and Arsenical, or like I said, if this isn't his exact rack, even something as simple as playing O through this W, as I'll leave you guys to check, would result in an easy win. Basically, my point is if Nigel just drops his K in this original position, he has nothing to be afraid of. Because even if Joey bingos for like 100 on his next turn, Nigel is still going to be up 20 points and a turn. And that turn is going to give him more than enough flexibility to unload any high point tiles like the Q that he might draw, score enough points, such that Joey is not going to be able to go out for nearly enough in the endgame. It's not that hard to realize this without even playing through all the different possibilities rigorously. Another reasonable option for Nigel in the original position, if he really felt an urge to block on the bottom, would be something resembling PUR for 11 points. I won't go through the details here, but again, it's not that hard to see that even if Joey hits something like 12 mo after this, then with 1 tile still in the bag and Nigel having another turn to unload some of his tiles and score more points, he is going to hold on easily in the endgame. Basically, the moral of the story here is Nigel needs to simply not empty the bag, and he should hold on and win. But yet, as we saw, Nigel did fall for the trap. He emptied the bag with Kuru, and when all was said and done, Joey bingoed out with 12 mo, winning the game by a single point in absolutely ridiculous and miraculous fashion. Joey needed not one, but two major strokes of luck to pull off this improbable victory. Number one came from the tile bag. He needed to not only draw the blank, but also pull the playable bingo of 12mo from an extremely ugly looking pool after his play of outro, which was of course quite lucky. And number two came from his opponent. He needed Nigel to incorrectly play the Kuru position and empty the bag, allowing this to happen. So it just goes to show you, even the strongest Scrabble players do make mistakes, and if you can put yourself in a position where you might be able to win if your opponent doesn't play the position correctly, it's always worth a shot because you just never know what's going to happen on the other side of the board. The second game I want to show you guys in today's video features yet another miraculous Joey Krafchick victory, from the same tournament, this time against longtime top player Rafi Stern. Joey found himself down 164 points with 28 tiles left in the bag. But he does have some playable bingos here. He finds the nice terabyte through the Y, which is good news for him, but the bad news is he's still down over 100 points and it's now Rafi's turn. But here Rafi makes his first key mistake. He has a 65-point play available in this position, the very nice wayward from the W in Thui, which would put him in firm command. But here, Rafi gets a little bit greedy. He tries the phony of waywards, which would score 117 points if it were valid and basically end the game on the spot. However, this is not a smart gamble for several reasons. Number one, it's not necessary. If Rafi just plays wayward for 65, then he goes up 166 points with just 15 tiles left in the bag on a fairly restricted board. It's very hard to conceive of a way that Rafi could lose after playing wayward. Number two is that even if Joey is not sure of waywards himself, he's absolutely forced to challenge in this position. From Joey's perspective, if this stays on the board, he's down 218. He is not coming back. He absolutely must challenge and will challenge if he wants any hope of winning this game. And of course, that's exactly what happened. Joey immediately challenged this word and it came off of the board, so Rafi scored 0 for this turn. And Joey, on his next turn, makes an extremely astute play. His highest scoring play and his best equity play by far is Juco down the end column, making nut, ace, and tour, scoring 37 points. But he knows, based on Rafi's last play, that if he does this, he's going to get hammered with the 65-point wayward on Rafi's next turn. So Joey needs to stop Rafi from playing there. And as such, he plays WAP for 26 points from the W in Thui. The idea here is that this is not a very good leave, but he knows that Rafi is fairly unlikely to play in the spot for Juco on his next turn because Nat is not a valid 3-letter word. So after Rafi plays elsewhere on the board, Joey will then play Juco on his next turn. So very clever and alert play by Joey here. After this play, as Joey anticipated, Rafi does not play in the top right part of the board. He plays away for 36 points, a nice insertion play in its own right, making Vape, Oo, and La, and once again bringing Rafi to a 100-plus point lead. Joey, as planned, goes with Juco for 37 points. Now, he does keep the IIS sleeve, which is not the best, but the good news is that there are no more eyes unseen to Joey that he could theoretically draw, so that means it's not possible for him to get a third eye on his rack, which would be the biggest concern with this leave. And now comes Rafi's second critical mistake. He's in a great position here. He's up 74 points and he holds DDNORST. There are not a lot of good places for Joey to bingo here, even if he has the remaining S. Note that Uri and Away both do not take S's, so bingos along the 14 row for Joey are impossible. At this point, it's pretty much inconceivable that Rafi would lose this game without Joey bingoing. So what Rafi wants to do is take control of this board and do the best he can to ensure Joey does not bingo. Right now, the biggest bingo threats for Joey are on the left-hand side of the board. The biggest one being an 8-letter word to the N in Nook, because that would score quite well, hitting the triple word score at A8. Joey could also bingo down the D column through the E in Resolins with something ending in maybe IER or IES, or down the B column, but that would require a 7-letter word ending in A, as that's the only letter that can go before a G. A play like Den through the E in Grego looks great for Rafi here. True, it only scores 6 points, but scoring isn't his priority, bingo defense is. And it blocks 2 of the 3 lines I was mentioning before. Most importantly, the high-scoring A-column line ending with the N in Nook. This basically forces Joey to end a bingo in an A down the B column. And not only is it difficult to end a 7-letter word in an A, bingos there are also not going to score much for Joey and give back a significant amount of counterplay to Rafi using the triple word scores on the A column. So given that Den puts Rafi up by 80 points, if Joey bingos there, Rafi is still going to be ahead with a tempo and first dibs at those scoring spots. It would be really hard for Rafi to lose that game. As such, Den feels like it should win for Rafi under almost all circumstances. In any event, regardless of what you play here, the one thing you absolutely do not want to do if you're Rafi is give Joey more high-scoring bingo lines. But that's exactly what Rafi does here, playing Ditz for 21 points down the H column, opening a T in a triple line which Joey could potentially hit for a high score on his next turn. So you may be thinking, why would Rafi do this? I'm not exactly sure what his logic was, but maybe he was thinking he scores 21 points and that puts him up by 95. And even if Joey bingos there for a lot, Rafi's lead should be enough to hold on in the endgame. That logic is not entirely unsound, but as we're going to see, it's not perfect. And like I said before, there's really no reason for Rafi to take this risk. If he plays Den, as I was suggesting before, it's extremely difficult to conjure up a scenario where Rafi loses the game. In any case, he played Ditz, and let's see what happened next. Following his play of Juco, Joey drew into a rack of AFIILNS. Prior to Rafi's play of Ditz, Joey did not have any playable bingos on this board. So I can only imagine what must have been going through Joey's mind when Rafi, holding a lead, opened up a T for Joey in a triple line. Joey, without hesitation, slapped down tail fins from that T, getting the F on the double letter score and the S on the triple word score for 95 points. And that right there, guys, ties up the game at 369 apiece, and we head into a 7-tile versus 7-tile endgame with the bag empty, Rafi holding EENOORR, and Joey, as you guys can see on the right, holding AABDELT. So what happens now? As hard as it is to believe, Rafi is lost. Now, the reason I say it's hard to believe is typically in endgames where both players have a lot of tiles and neither of them are immediately threatening to go out, if the score is tied, having the next turn is a huge advantage. Because if you can play out, say, in 2 turns, then your opponent is only going to get 1 more turn. And it's going to be pretty hard for your opponent to make up the value of your 2 turns plus whatever bonus points you get from their unplayed tiles with the value of just 1 play, at least under most circumstances. But these are not most circumstances. Since Rafi's rack has so many duplicates, 2 E's, 2 O's, and 2 R's, and all 1-pointers, he's not going to be able to get enough points, even with an out and 2 sequence, to outrun the plays Joey's going to be able to make with his higher scoring B. Let's see how this works. Rafi made his best play here, Roos, for 7 points through the S in Resilience, saving E and R on his next turn. After this, Joey had a single winning play, the 22-point Bean to the N in Tailfins, and he found it. This left Joey with ADLT on his rack and put him up by 15. So from Rafi's perspective, he's down 15 points. He knows he's going to be getting 10 points, 5 times 2, for Joey's unplayed ADLT after he goes out on this turn. So that means Rafi needs just 5 points with ERN as an outplay to tie the game, or 6 or more to win. It doesn't feel like it should be that hard, but amazingly, it's not possible. Rafi has a single outplay on this turn, and it is the 4-point rent to the T in cute. There's nothing better for Rafi to do here, so that's exactly what he does, and when all is said and done, Joey wins his second miraculous 1-point victory of the tournament by a score of 391 to 390. So yet another game this tournament for Joey where it seemed like he was completely lost, and only by virtue of some crazy strokes of luck, both from the tile bag as well as from his opponent, was he able to come back and pull off the incredible victory. Remember, earlier in this game, in this position, Joey was down a whopping 164 points. His first big break came from his opponent when Rafi got greedy in this position, trying the phony of Waywards when Wayward would have almost certainly locked up the win. Joey's second big break also came from his opponent, since here Rafi played Ditz, opening a bingo line for Joey when that wasn't the right thing to do. And his third big break came from the tile bag, because Yes, Rafi made a mistake with Ditzt, but Joey happened to draw the exact right tiles to not only hit that line, but to hit that line for a huge score with the 95-point tail fins. And Joey got a fourth stroke of luck, this one also from the tile bag, that based on Rafi's draw after Ditzt and Joey's draw after tail fins, Rafi didn't have a high-scoring or flexible enough rack to win in the endgame, and that Rafi's best endgame happened to lose by a single point. So the number of amazing strokes of luck Joey had to have to win this game, both from his opponent and from the tile bag, is nothing short of unbelievable. But like I've been saying all along, guys, these things can and do happen. Luck, even if it's been your worst enemy all tournament, can become your best friend in an instant, and even the best Scrabble players do make mistakes. It happens to the best of us. So there you have it, guys. Two absolutely wild comebacks by Joey Krafchick. Both of them, he seemed totally out, and he comes back and wins in spectacular fashion by 1 point. So major kudos to Joey for having the composure to pull these off. And I think the biggest lesson, like I said before as well, guys, is even if you seem like you're in a hopeless situation, it doesn't matter what the score is, it doesn't matter who's sitting across the board from you, keep fighting. Because if you keep fighting, here and there, you will get rewarded in spectacular fashion like Joey did for his efforts in these games. So that's it for this one, guys. Thank you all so much for watching the video. As always, let me know what you thought of these games in the comments. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and I will see you all soon for the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.